now we have someone else joining us via Zoom this morning to talk on the issue of flooding in Nigeria. I mean, there has been a lot of flooding incidents, flooding cases on the headlines, on the news, it's everywhere. So we're going to look at the preparedness of Nigeria and the people. And our guest this morning is Dr. Isiah Abonyi. He's a senior lecturer and HOD, Department of Environmental Health Science, Nnamdi Azikiwe University, Nnewi campus. Good morning.
Everybody, good morning, the studio.
Thank you for joining us today.
You're welcome.
All right, now, first of all, let's look at, what exactly are the major causes of flooding in Nigeria at the moment?
Yeah, flooding in Nigeria has become a recurring decimal. It is a thing that we have come to be living with it. Like your question says, what actually is the cause? The cause is basically why it is now manifest and very prominent in our daily lives is because of climate change. We've been hearing of climate change in the past. Now we are seeing the effect. It is now living with us. The problem of flooding is aggravated due to heavy rainfall. And when the heavy rainfall, there is runoff. A collection of runoffs channels into drainages. And when the drainages are not adequate, or when they don't exist at all, you now have flooding, because water now moves from where it's supposed to go and begins to cause havoc, begins to cause damage by entering houses, entering farmland, and in most cases submerge the houses, submerge farmland, destroy infrastructure, take lives, and a lot of other damages that accompany flooding. So basically, flooding is caused by heavy rainfalls and absence or inadequate drainage system. That's why we have flood, and it's becoming an annual event in Nigeria. It's a pity that we have not learned our lessons and we continue to live with the devastating effects of flooding. A thing that has happened year after year. By now we are supposed to have adjusted and we are supposed to have done the needful, so that even when we know that to some good extent we cannot give immediate control to climate change, because it is a gradual thing that have overwhelmed the earth, and there are measures to actually mitigate the climate change issues, but that one is a long-term thing that will start reducing the effect of climate change. But at least for flooding not to have devastating effect on us, we can do something in the immediate to avert it. But it's unfortunate that we have failed to that.
All right, so what would you say are the environmental systems or those things that we can do that could help reduce the flooding but maybe being ignored or destroyed?
Good. They are simple, not rocket science. One, we know that flooding occurs when the volume of runoff is greater than the channel where they are supposed to run off through. Because as a matter of fact, when the rains come, they must drain, they flow from the higher plane to the lower plane, and they move towards the sea. So what we are supposed to do environmentally is to ensure that we have enough drainage, starting from our houses, then come to the street, then come to the community and as a society. So that's now underscores the importance of town planning, because we have been ignoring it. We have not been taking into cognizance what should be done in why we plan our towns, how we plan our streets, why we plan in these a lot of housing estates springing up here and there. What is the drainage plan? What is the drainage pattern of those houses that we are housing estates we're erecting? Because you find out that most time, because of the need, yes, there is the need for us to have enough houses for ourselves. But in doing that, we do have to interfere with the natural cause of events. This flooding is one of it. The flood. We must always have a plan that while we build, we will not build on natural waterways, because nature is wonderfully built in such a way that the land have contours where there is high plain, the low plain, that water, when they come naturally, they will have to flow through this channel and out it goes. But we deliberately, knowingly or deliberately anyway, occupy those places. We reclaim. We say we are fast. We are intelligent. We reclaim. We build on water plains. And at the end of the day, we do not know that water must come, and water must pass. And as it's the issue of the volume of rainfall has been aggravated by the climate change effect, it means more water will come, more volume are expected, and when you block it, it will pull down those structures you use to block the waterway. So what we are trying to say is that what is actually needed, you must plan for the estimate volume of water that will come for the year, plan adequate volume of channels where it will flow, do block the channels, and when these channels are even built, even the little that government provide, do not use wastes to block them, because it is a lot of issues that people take for granted, maybe because of absence of appropriate waste disposal system, or ignorance, or both. People carry their waste to go and dump in gutters. I do not really, in short, I take it more of ignorance than knowing that this will actually come back at you, and you do it. So, and when it becomes systematic that every household takes their waste to go and discharge at water channels, these are part of what will cause that the water channels will will be blocked. And when you try to block water, it find alternative routes, and that alternative will become flowing into your houses, flowing into the gutter, into the other places that it's not supposed to pass through. And in doing that, havoc creates it. So these are the issues we have to, I think if we have time, we'll take them one after another.
All right, but you've mentioned the issue of climate change a couple of times now. So can you shed more light on how climate change has actually affected the rate of flooding that we have now in the country?
Okay, I think that's a good question. Climate change in itself is what we refer to when the climate is a measure of humidity and temperature. So when the humidity and temperature of a region have changed over a long period of time, that's what we call climate change. And it's as how it affects flooding is that our climates have changed to the extent that the pattern of rainfall is no longer what it used to be. Rainfall before now used to be distributed between late February, early March to around November. But as it is now, because of a lot of anthropogenic activities, human activities, burning of fossil fuel that emits carbon dioxide and other greenhouse effects into the atmosphere, the temperature and the atmospheric temperature have changed, and it has now affected the pattern of rainfall. Rainfall now come not widely distributed, but clusters between May and August, and now with heavier intensity. So when it comes with heavier intensity, there are less chances of being absorbed by the soil. So it now means that most of the rain will now have to flow, flow out, not being properly absorbed in the soil. So they now flow. So, and a collection of that heavy flow will now aggregate into flood. So again, only about the water as the rain as they come. The seas are as well rising. The sea rising because of the temperature of the Arctic and Antarctic region. This Arctic and Antarctic region are made up majorly of snow, and because the soil is heating up, it is dissolving because of the higher temperature of the soil as a result of this climate change. Because when the ozone layer is depleted, more heat from the sun now gets to the earth and heats up the earth. So when the earth gets heated up, the Arctic and Antarctic, this glacier, that's the ice, begin to melt, and when they melt, they join the sea. They raise the sea level, so that when even this the sea level are already raised, when this flood comes and add to the volume of the sea, they quickly overflow, because at times most of this flood as a result of seas and rivers within the community overflowing their banks.
These all right, so now let's look at Dr. Abonyi, let's look at the preparedness of Nigeria and the people. Now, first of all, looking at when it comes to early warning signs, bodies like NIMET and other weather bodies, do you think they are doing enough when it comes to, you know, passing information or giving early warning signs of rain and possible areas that are prone to flooding?
Yes. To be fair to government in that aspect, NIMET has been doing its job. Because I'm aware, for those who know, NIMET as early as February or March released the predictions for the year. The predictions, you know, like it sounds, predictions are expected. It may come true, it may not come true exactly the way they say. But most times, NIMET predictions come true. NIMET has released the early warning signs that this is the volume of water we're expecting, and this, so some states were mentioned, Lagos, Calabar, these states that are in low regions of the country were mentioned specifically where the effects of the flood will be more. Yes, the predictions come, but the other thing is that how serious do governments, especially as subnationals, because it is the national, the federal government that supports NIMET, and that is their duty actually. So the subnationals, these state governments, have not actually been very proactive in the issue of mitigation against the effects of flooding, because I am aware that the federal government as well have said that they released not less than 620 billion naira for ecological situation. Ecological fund, as they call it, is the money that you are supposed to use to work to prevent or mitigate the effect of these natural disasters. In the north, it is about desertification. Down here in the south, is about this flooding and the erosion, gully erosion that is leading in most southern states. So these funds are released by federal government to this subnational, that's the states, but we hardly can see what actually they use this money for. So if the monies were released to all the states, then they should use the share of their money. If this money is shared among all the states, they will get a handsome amount of money. They should have used this to create more channels, to use it to make sure that people do not build in water channels. If by error or default any person the state government is supposed to and make sure that they demolished and moved away and let normal water channels be allowed to flow free. Then in the area of waste management, because this is part of what even the little channels we have are interrupted. So the state government is supposed to make sure that there is adequate waste management systems, so that these solid waste do not find their way into water channels. These are not being defects. Even if they are doing it at all, the effect is not showing, because as a matter of fact, these monies were released for these purposes, and every year by year, we keep suffering the effect of flooding. Flooding keep taking life, keep destroying our livelihood, keep destroying even the few infrastructure that the government was able to build. Bridges have collapsed, houses have collapsed, roads have been cut because of flooding. So if these effects keep happening to us, then how do we justify this huge amount the federal government is releasing to the states? That's the question.
Exactly, and also still on the the preparedness of different bodies, looking at also NEMA and state emergency agencies when it comes to areas that are already being flooded, like we have the Mokwa community as well and other communities too in the country that have been submerged with flood. So how would you rate the effectiveness of their response system when it comes to coming to the aid of the people who are affected by the flood?
Thank you. This is another interesting issue that we need to address passionately, because it is not just I know. We see in the news often and on, especially when issues of flooding come like this, when NEMA or state agency, as the case may be, will rush, will go to the place, display the wares they bring, and commiserate with the people and walk away. For me, that is not enough response, because that is just one off. Somebody that his house has been submerged, his livelihood has been cleaned, his farm for the year has been completely submerged and washed away. How does your one-off attempt to come and say sorry and bring bags of rice and whatnot, those physical things we see on the television, how does that solve the problem for the year? You find out that if actually you mean to respond, it is to follow up those victims, to follow them up because their lives, their livelihood for the year has been destroyed. So that one-off offer, that one-off gift at that point in time will not solve the problem. So I will not actually see that this is a proper response. So, and that's why you see that in responding, you evaluate what has the damage, and as much try to take through how will the person cope for the rest of the year until another farming season comes, when he now need plan and do other things. So this actually will be a heavy financial burden, and that is why I wish the NEMA, the SEMA, as the case may be, will all key into preventive measures rather than this one response, because this word acclaimed mantra that prevention is always better and cheaper than cure should come to place here, because it will be far more cheaper to prevent, to take proactive measures that will make the people not suffer, than you respond when their all the means of their livelihood have been destroyed. How do you do this? By yes, you tell people who are living in lowland areas, those who are living in flood, to please vacate, but you don't just say it and walk away, because when you say it and they do not comply, when they when they suffer, when this kind of devastation comes, they will soon look up to you. So you take up, that is real governance. When people are exposed to danger, do something. Don't just talk and walk away. Government
all right, now very briefly, Dr. Abonyi, now as an environmental expert, what role do you think environmental experts like you should play when it comes to helping out with this issue, this environmental issue that we have now, particularly in regards to flooding?
Yes, that's exactly the point we are making. That's why we are trying to let the public and the government know the importance of prevention. Environmental health officers are supposed to be in all the states, all local governments, and even the federal, advising, enforcing these laws. But they are not. I am in the university as we speak. We are graduating environmental health personnel that are supposed to be working, but they are not getting employed. Ergo unemployment everywhere. So we are supposed to, we are advising the government to employ more environmental health officers. The laws are there. Our laws are there to enforce all these little mitigative activities, but they are not employed. The government is supposed to take, because these are part of what the government is neglecting, that is causing this havoc. People are not, those who have the responsibility to follow through all this advice are not in government. It is the duty of government, like local government, state government, federal government. These are the people that have the responsibility to enforce these laws. The laws are there for environmental health officers to do, but you cannot enforce it as a freelancer. you only as a freelance practitioner, you can only advise, you can only come to talk, but you cannot enforce, because the laws exist for environmental health officer to take people to court, even government who fail to do what they're supposed to do. But you cannot do that outside the government, because it's still the powers of the government that we're going to enforce. So we recommend massive employment of environmental health officer to do enlightenment and enforcement of all these mitigative actions, so that we will stop spending huge amounts of money in procuring medication and other materials when the devastation has already been done. Much as we
all right,
talk
thank you so much for your time, Dr. Abonyi. Really appreciate you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
See Nature TV. News in your pocket.